It's the silence that gets you, the kind that's so loud it hums in your ears. I'm standing at the doorway of our walk-in closet and his half is just a void. A graveyard of empty hangers that clink together when I breathe too hard. Everything is gone except for one thing. Tucked way in the back, a faded navy baseball cap from his high school team. The Bulldogs, he probably doesn't even know it's missing. If I close my eyes and breathe in deep, I can almost catch the scent of his aftershave, the one that smells like cedar and something clean, clinging to the shirts that are no longer there. It gets fainter every day, or maybe I'm just forgetting. His keys are on the kitchen island. A neat silver pile next to the bouquet of hydrangeas I bought 3 days ago, back when I thought this was just another fight. The edges of the petals are starting to turn a sad, papery brown. I haven't cried. I don't think I can. It feels like someone scooped out everything inside me and left a hollow shell. Just this buzzing numbness. My phone feels heavy in my hand. I unlock it, my thumb going to the app I know I shouldn't open, and I just start to scroll, mindlessly, endlessly. It wasn't always this quiet. You have to understand, Landon's love was the loudest, warmest thing in my life. We met in college, the classic story. I was the stressed out econ major, he was the laid back history student who actually seemed to enjoy learning. His laugh was the first thing I noticed, a genuine rolling sound that could fill a whole room. He wasn't just my boyfriend, he was my anchor. When I landed my dream job, a junior analyst position at a top-tier investment firm in the city, he didn't hesitate. He quit the job he adored, teaching history at our old high school. He was the kind of teacher kids talked about for years, the one who made the Civil War feel immediate and real. He'd come home with chalk dust on his jeans and stories about his students that made him glow. He gave all of that up, packed up his life, and followed me, for me. Your dream is my dream now, Noel, he'd said, and the terrifying, thrilling weight of his belief in me was overwhelming. This city, this job, it was everything I'd ever worked for. But it came with a world I was completely unprepared for. My colleagues were a different breed. They were people who didn't just have money, they had lineage. They spoke with an effortless, clipped precision, discussing summers in Nantucket and ski trips to Aspen like I might discuss a trip to the grocery store. I remember the first work happy hour. My boss, Victoria, asked Landon where he was from. He smiled his big, open smile and said, "A little town in southern Appalachia, ma'am, more cows than people." He meant it with pride, but the table went quiet. Victoria just gave a tight, polite smile and said, "Oh, how rustic." The word hung in the air, a polite little dagger. In that moment, I felt a hot, prickling shame that was entirely my own. That's when the poison started to seep in. I became acutely, painfully aware of how Landon sounded to them. His gentle drawl, the way he'd say y'all or tell a long, winding story about his granddaddy's farm, things I used to find endlessly charming, started to feel like a liability. A bright neon sign pointing out that we didn't belong. He was my one piece of home, my sanctuary from the high-pressure, cutthroat world I worked in, but I started to see him as a flaw in the perfect facade I was trying to build. He tried to talk to me about it once. "You seem different lately," he said gently one night, "like you're walking on eggshells." I snapped at him, told him he wouldn't understand the pressure, that this was just how things were done here. I saw the hurt in his eyes, but I ignored it. So I started to perform. I learned to talk about wine I couldn't afford and art I didn't understand. I bought clothes on credit that were far too expensive just to fit in. I polished my own accent, sanding down the soft edges I'd picked up from him. When I told stories about our weekends, I'd edit them. Landon and I went fishing at the lake became I spent some time at a rustic cottage upstate. The shift from we to I became a habit. I was slowly, methodically erasing the most authentic parts of our life together, convincing myself it was necessary for survival. I was an actress in a long-running play, and he was becoming an inconvenient piece of my backstory that I needed to write out of the script. The dinner party was my masterpiece of deception. I'd spent 2 days deep cleaning the apartment until it was sterile, a blank canvas for the life I wanted to project. I'd bought wine I couldn't pronounce and cheese that cost more than our weekly groceries. When my colleagues from the firm walked in, I was the picture of effortless grace, a role I had rehearsed in my head 1,000 times. Victoria, my managing director, gave a curt nod of approval as she surveyed the scene. "Lovely space, Noel," she'd said, and the words felt like a blessing. For the first hour, everything was perfect. I was charming, I was witty. I laughed at the right jokes and steered the conversation towards safe, approved topics. The market, a new gallery opening, summer travel plans. Landon, bless his heart, was a perfect co-host. He was genuinely interested in everyone, asking them about their families and hobbies with an earnestness that was both his greatest strength and, in my warped mind, our greatest weakness. The trouble started over dessert. Landon was telling a story about his grandfather, a man who had worked the same plot of land his entire life. He was describing how, as a little boy, his granddaddy taught him how to predict the weather just by watching the cows lie down in the field. It was a sweet, simple story, full of the kind of detail I used to adore. And he'd look at me, Landon said, his voice softening with the memory, and he'd say, "Landon, son, you listen to the land. It speaks truer than any man on the television." But as he spoke, I could feel the atmosphere shift. I saw the polite, fixed smiles on my colleagues' faces. I saw Victoria take a slow, deliberate sip of her wine, her eyes glazed over with a kind of bored indulgence. They didn't hear a beautiful memory, they heard a hic. They heard the rustic man from the happy hour. A panic, cold and sharp, seized me. "This is it," a voice in my head screamed. "This is where they write you off. Fix it, make it a joke." Before he could finish the punchline of his granddaddy's wisdom, I jumped in. "Oh, let me do the best part," I chirped, my voice a shrill, false instrument. I leaned forward, contorting my face into a goofy parody. Then, in a hideously exaggerated, cartoonish drawl that was a cruel mockery of his accent, I bellowed, he'd say, "Landon boy, if them cows is sittin', you best be gettin' your laundry in, ya hear." The table went dead silent for a single, horrifying second. I held my breath, then one of the junior analysts snorted, another chuckled, and then the dam broke. The table erupted in laughter, loud, gasping, unrestrained laughter. Victoria was wiping tears from her eyes. She reached across the table and patted my arm. "My God, Noel," she gasped, "you're an absolute riot. I had no idea you had such a talent for impressions." A dizzying, toxic wave of relief and belonging washed over me. I had done it. I had turned my liability into a punchline. I was one of them. I smiled, a wide, bright, treacherous smile and soaked in their approval. And through it all, I never once looked at Landon, not even for a second. As soon as the elevator doors closed behind the last guest, the performative energy drained out of me, leaving a hollow buzz. I turned back into the apartment, a triumphant smile still plastered on my face. "Well," I announced to the room, "I think that went incredibly well, don't you?" I started gathering empty wine glasses, my movements quick and brittle with leftover adrenaline. Victoria loved the coq au vin, and did you see her laugh at that joke? I think I finally broke through. Landon was at the sink, rinsing plates. He moved with a slow, deliberate calm that was completely at odds with my frantic energy. He didn't say a word. The only sound was the running water and the clink of ceramic on ceramic. The silence began to feel heavy, accusatory. "What?" I asked, my voice a little too sharp. "Don't be a sore sport, it was just a joke." Everyone thought it was funny. He placed the last plate carefully in the dishwasher and turned off the faucet. The sudden quiet was deafening. He leaned back against the counter, wiping his hands slowly on a dish towel, his eyes finally meeting mine in the reflection of the dark kitchen window. There was no anger in them, that I could have handled. Anger means there's still a fight to be had, a negotiation to be made. No, this was something far worse. It was a calm, profound, and utterly devastating disappointment. It was the look of someone seeing you for the very first time and not liking what they see. "My grandfather," he said, his voice quiet but carrying the weight of a final judgment, spent his entire life being told he sounded stupid because of how he talked. He was a brilliant man. He could fix any engine, grow anything from the soil, and he knew more about the stars than anyone I've ever met, but people only ever heard his accent. He taught me to be proud of where I come from, Noel, to never let anyone make me feel small for it. He paused, and in that pause, I felt the floor drop out from under me. "Tonight," he continued, his voice perfectly level, "you took the most precious thing he ever gave me, and you sold it for a cheap laugh to impress people whose names you probably won't remember in a year. That wasn't a joke, that was a choice, you chose them." I opened my mouth to argue, to say he was being dramatic, that it wasn't that serious, that he just didn't understand. But the words died in my throat because he was right. I had made a choice. He turned away and walked out of the kitchen without another word. That night, for the first time in our 6 years together, he slept on the couch. I lay awake in our bed, the empty space beside me feeling like a chasm, telling myself he'd be over it by morning. He'd forgive me, he always did. But when I got home from work the next day, the apartment was silent. His keys were on the counter, his toothbrush was gone from the bathroom, and his side of the closet was empty. My phone confirmed it, his number was blocked. His social media profiles had vanished from my world. There was no screaming match, no dramatic exit, just a clean, cold, surgical cut. He was gone. For the first few days, I existed in a state of suspended disbelief. It was a performance for an audience of one, myself. He's just cooling off, I told myself as I made coffee for one. He's staying with a friend, he needs some space. The sheer efficiency of his departure was something my mind couldn't fully process. It was too quiet, too final. I kept expecting to see his beat-up pickup truck pull into the parking garage, to hear his key in the lock. I went to work and put on my mask. I was bright, cheerful, and professional. I even made a point of stopping by Victoria's office, leaning casually against the doorframe. Such a fun dinner the other night, I said, trying to sound breezy. I'm still laughing about that story. I was desperately seeking validation, a sign that my sacrifice had been worth it. Victoria looked up from her monitor, her expression unreadable. Oh. Right, she said, a flicker of something. Was it pity, discomfort, in her eyes? Yes, well, Landon seems like a very genuine person. She then immediately pivoted, asking me about a quarterly report, her tone all business. The conversation was over. The door I thought I had opened was firmly shut. The real shift happened at lunch a few days later. The awkwardness from my colleagues had become a low hum I could no longer ignore. People would go quiet when I joined a conversation. Invitations to after-work drinks mysteriously stopped appearing in my inbox. I was walking past the small kitchenette when I heard two analysts from my team talking, their voices low. Can't believe she did that in front of everyone, one of them, a woman named Olivia, was saying. It was brutal, you could see the look on his face. I know, the other replied. Landon is seriously one of the nicest guys. My husband and I met him at the company picnic last year. He spent 20 minutes talking to our kid about frogs. For her to humiliate him like that, just to score points with Victoria, it was just gross. The word hung in the air, gross. I backed away from the doorway before they could see me, my face burning as if I'd been slapped. I retreated to the sterile silence of a bathroom stall, the overheard words echoing in my head. They weren't impressed. They weren't welcoming me into their inner circle, they were judging me. They saw exactly what I had done, and it hadn't made me seem sophisticated or witty. It had made me seem cruel. A social climber so desperate she'd publicly debase the one person who truly loved her. The laughter I had mistaken for acceptance was nothing more than the awkward, uncomfortable reaction to a public train wreck. I hadn't gained a new tribe. I had just shown them in the most spectacular way possible that I was the kind of person who would betray her own. And so now I'm back here, in the silence. The numbness I felt in the beginning has finally worn off, scraped away layer by layer until all that's left is the raw, exposed nerve of my shame. It's a physical weight pressing down on my chest, making each breath feel shallow and stolen. The apartment, once my proud showcase of success, now feels like a tomb I decorated myself. Every object is a ghost. There's the coffee mug with a small chip on the rim that he refused to throw away because I'd given it to him on our second anniversary. The indentation on the leather armchair where he'd sit for hours, lost in a history book. The expensive cookbook on the counter, still open to the paella recipe we were supposed to make together, a bookmark sticking out like a tiny, accusing finger. The social circle I sacrificed him for, it evaporated. There was no dramatic shunning, just a quiet, polite, and utterly chilling distancing. Yesterday, I saw Victoria in the hallway, laughing with another director. A real, genuine laugh, not the sharp, performative one she'd given me at the dinner party. She saw me and the smile didn't so much disappear as it was put away, replaced by a professional mask of neutrality. Noel, she nodded and walked on. I am an island of awkwardness at the office. I eat lunch at my desk. I leave the second the clock hits 5. I wasn't just a clown performing for their amusement, I was a cautionary tale. The girl who tried too hard and, in a single, ugly moment, showed everyone exactly how hollow she was inside. Last night, in a fit of desperation I can't even begin to justify, I did something pathetic. I remembered Landon was friends on social media with my old college roommate's younger sister, a girl I barely know. My hands were shaking as I typed her name into the search bar. It felt like I was breaking into a house. It took me 20 minutes of frantic clicking, my heart pounding with a nauseating mix of hope and self-loathing, but I found her profile. And through her public friends list I found him. His profile is private now, of course. A locked door, but he has a new profile picture. It was uploaded 2 days ago. In it, he's standing in a wide-open field, the kind we used to dream of owning one day, dotted with what look like black-eyed Susans. The sky behind him is a brilliant, endless blue, and the sun is catching the gold in his hair. He's back in his hometown. He's wearing a simple, faded t-shirt, the kind he loved but I'd always called his laundry day shirt, and a genuine, unforced smile. The stress lines that had started to gather around his eyes here in the city are gone. A beautiful golden retriever is sitting at his feet, looking up at him with pure adoration. He looks happy, he looks free, he looks like himself again. I spent an hour, maybe more, just staring at that tiny, pixelated image. I zoomed in on his face, on the crinkles around his eyes, searching for any sign of the pain I caused. But all I saw was peace. The profound, quiet peace of a man who had amputated the source of his infection and was finally healing. And me. I'm still here in this cold, empty apartment in a city that never wanted me. I sit in the dark, my phone screen illuminating my face, refreshing a page I'll never have access to. The screen goes dark and I see my own reflection, pale, haunted. I unlock it again, refresh. A digital ghost haunting the edges of a life that was supposed to be mine. He escaped. But I am trapped in the aftermath, a lonely clown on an empty stage with the echoes of a single cruel laugh as my only company. The numbness is gone. And in its place is the horrifyingly clear and final understanding that I didn't just lose him. I threw him away. And for what? For nothing, absolutely nothing.